different factors that go into play for determining the yield grade. First of all is the hot carcass weight. The hot carcass weight is that weight we're going to get off the carcass right before it goes into that hot box. So they weigh that carcass each side, because at that point it's been split already, and get the total hot carcass weight. The next thing is the fat thickness. So once this carcass was ribbed between the 12th and 13th rib, we need to look at the fat thickness. And that is going to be converted to the preliminary yield grade, or the PYG that I've listed there. That's what PYG stands for, preliminary yield grade. The fat, where we're going to look for the fat to get that preliminary yield grade is 3/4 the distance up of the length of this ribeye muscle. So right about there. Now, this has to be done at line speed and visually, so obviously they're not going to sit there with a probe every time and actually measure it. They're just going to decide how much is there and make adjustments. Making adjustments means we're going to look at the overall carcass. You know, sometimes they can get more fat here, but then if we look and say, oh, well, you know, you can still see some bluing in the round, and then there's still quite a bit of fat here. We can make adjustments to that preliminary yield grade based on the amount of fat overall on the carcass. But that's going to be our starting point, is that fat measurement, 3/4 the distance up the length of the ribeye muscle. The next thing is the ribeye area. So up until, the fat thickness is going to give us an idea of the leanness of that carcass. The ribeye area muscle is going to give us an idea of the muscling of that carcass. So we measure this area, the ribeye muscle, using this, well, at line speed they have to just say, oh, that's an 11.3 or whatever square inch ribeye. But we can use a grid to get the exact measurement of that ribeye muscle. And so that's what they measure there. The other factor is the kidney, pelvic, and heart fat. That's the internal fat. So the fat that's surrounding the kidneys, the fat in the pelvic area, and the fat down in the heart area. So we're looking at that internal fat, because that has to be taken into consideration as well for yield grade. So the next table I provided there lists the preliminary yield grade, and the amount of fat thickness is in that next column. In inches is how we measure that. And again, that's about in this area. And that'll give us our preliminary yield grade of where to start with. So if this measures, well, so this gives, so this measures about, see, this is listed in preliminary yield. This is a 3.5 is what it tells us. So that's a preliminary yield grade. Then if we look at the rest of the carcass, and if we say, you can still see quite a bit of bluing over the round, but, there's still quite a bit of fat here, and over the chuck area, you can't see any bluing here. And so I would probably adjust that up 2/10 maybe. So start with the 3.7. Ryan might disagree, I don't know. And so that's kind of how you get to that preliminary yield grade, is by looking at that fat thickness in different areas of the carcass and the fat covering. So again, it's measured in inches, and then it's converted to that preliminary yield grade based on fat covering. We can, as I said, make adjustments to that based on deposition of fat over the entire carcass.